Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Guns Guitars, and if you guys have been following my series on the best budget bass upgrades, you guys were probably dying to see this video. This is the best budget DIY upgrades that will cost you nothing, or at the very least next to nothing, except for maybe a little bit of your time. Alright, I'm Dan, this is Guns Guitars, let's get started. Alright, so the first DIY upgrade that we're going to be doing is, you can see this neck has a really super glossy finish. That is definitely a factory gloss finish, and I am just not a fan of gloss finishes because it is more obvious to me when my hands start sweating that my fingers start getting sticky and squeaking as I go along the fretboard, and it's just less comfortable to play. So for that reason, whenever I'm building an instrument, I always put on a nice satin finish. So we're gonna sand this down a little bit. I'm probably not gonna remove the finish entirely. I'm probably just gonna scuff it up enough that we can redo the finish. And then we're gonna put on a really nice feeling satin finish that is going to play much better. To do this, I'm going to be using my orbital sander with a foam sanding pad and a 320 grit sanding disc. And like I said, I don't necessarily plan to get all the way through the finish, though I might, depending on how thin this finish is. I'm really just kind of scuffing it up so our new finish can stick to it really well. All right, so I have very clearly not burned through this finish at all. It's still very much present. It's a very thick finish on this one, but man, that already feels 1,000 times better. But before we get to the finishing, we're going to do our next DIY trick, and that's we're going to give this thing a full fret leveling, crowning, and polishing. Doing proper fretwork is absolutely key to taking a cheap or low-end bass and making it play like a high-end bass. And this neck is just awful. Horrible back, but let's see if we can fix that. Now, if you're not familiar with this process, I do have a video dedicated to it where you don't really need pro luthier tools to do it. You can use just basic at-home DIY tools that you already have. You just need to adapt them to the process. Now, if you're going to be doing this on several of your guitars or basses, or if you kind of want to start a little side hustle doing setups and fretwork on friends' instruments, then I recommend you get some of these sort of what I call mid-grade luthier tools, and they're really inexpensive and they just do a fantastic job for the money. So definitely check those out if you're interested, but we're going to go ahead and get to the fretwork on this sucker. Just right there on the very end. There's easy fix. Put on some polishing compound and polish. Alright, now to just clean up the fretboard a bit, I am just scrubbing it with steel wool. We're going to get off all that nasty finger grime that's built up over the last few years, as well as remove any remaining polish that might be lingering on those frets. Alright, so real quick, I'm just going to be adding my favorite finish of choice these days, True Oil. Now, if this were raw bare wood, I would start with a coat of shellac first to seal in the grain, but the grain is already well sealed under this finish that's on there. And we just smoothed it out a little bit, and now we're going to add this over on top, which is just going to give it a really nice natural feel. All right, now we got our neck all nice and satin smooth, and that True Oil actually even brought out a little bit extra figuring there in the neck. So looks much better, feels 100 times better. That's going to play really nicely. So our next free DIY upgrade is simply this. If your neck backplate came with a little plastic tray, just ditch that. You don't need it, and leaving it off will actually increase your chances of having better sustain on your instrument. Now, sustain is one of those buzzwords that people throw around with guitar modding all the time, and I'm not sure there's necessarily a measurable way to tell if it helps, but my philosophy is always, if it can help, then it's not going to hurt, right? All right, the next DIY upgrade we're going to do is the bridge. Now, if you caught my best budget bass upgrades, you know that on this specific bass, I just replaced the bridge because for 20 some odd bucks, this bridge is just 1,000 times better in every way possible. But if you don't want to spend any money, or if you like your bridge and you just want a quick DIY upgrade, you could drill out your existing bridge to be a string-through bridge, and so that's what I'm going to show you how to do here. The biggest things to consider when doing this is you just want to make sure that you don't do anything to interfere with your bridge screw mounting holes. So these holes are in a really weird spot on this one, so I'm going to drill my string-through holes behind the mounting screw holes. So I'm going to draw my hole for drilling just on a straight line between the top load hole and the groove in the saddle. And just to make that a little more accessible for the drill bit, we're gonna go ahead and remove these saddles and then drill out our new holes. And you want to make sure you drill a hole that's at least 9/64 or maybe even 5/32. That way you have enough room to string through a full size like 130 or 135 gauge low B string if you want to. And then you should also countersink these, just to make sure there's a nice clean break going over that's not going to leave any sharp burrs or edges that will break your string. And there we go. Our version looks just as clean as the one that comes like it from the factory. So then, of course, you would just replace your bridge, drill down through your string through holes, and then countersink the backside so that you have a nice spot for your ball end to sit. And bam, there you go. All the benefits of a string through bridge without actually having to buy one. You know, you get that increased sustain and better downward force for better contact and resonance, all those buzzwords, right? Now, the vast majority of the DIY upgrades we're doing to our bass here really just affect the playability of your bass, but this one really does affect the tone, and that is simply rewiring your electronics. Now, in this bass, I also upgraded the pickups, but that's not necessary. If you want to add some more tonal options, you can do so for free, literally just by rearranging some wires. If you've got a humbucker, you could rewire it for parallel operation instead of series. If you've got two singles, you can wire them together in series to get a humbucker sound. And all these upgrades cost you is just a little bit of solder, really. But I like to install switches so I can go back and forth between series and parallel, or, you know, blower, bypass, stereo output, all kinds of really cool wiring tricks. And if you guys are interested in what I feel like are the best wiring tricks for bass specifically, that was my video last week, so make sure you check out that video. And of course, if you're not confident in your abilities, I do try to make this as easy as possible. If you go to my website, gunsandguitars.net, I have all kinds of wiring diagrams, and I also have some DIY wiring kits, as well as full pre-wired harnesses available for sale as well. Another trick you can do for your electronics is if they are starting to have kind of some faulty connections, or there's a lot of static or pops and crackles when you operate them, just spray a little bit of this stuff, Deoxit D5. This little 5-ounce can will last you a lifetime. But anytime I've ever sprayed this inside my pots or switches and then just manipulated them a little bit, it not only cleans out all that nastiness that is built up in there that's causing those issues, but it also protects and preserves it from happening ever again. Anytime I've ever sprayed this stuff in my electronics, I've never had to deal with that issue ever again. Now, if the bass you're upgrading has these open gear style tuners, and you notice that they've gotten like a little bit difficult to manipulate, or they're just kind of gritty, or you don't get very fine tuning adjustment, a really cool DIY upgrade you can do to them is firstly just clean them out with, you know, a household cleaner like Simple Green or something that will get out all the oil and grime, scrub it with a toothbrush or something, and then add some silicone dry lube to it, just a little spritz, and then move it around a couple times. Set up your can so that it doesn't fall over. And this can be done on your bass. You don't need to remove the tuner like I did for this. But it's important that once you spray it on all the connections that have friction. And you're gonna need to give this thing a full turn all the way around to make sure that silicone dry lube works into every instance. And I can feel this thing, man, it is loosening up so much better. And so that's a really cool way that you can make your cheap low-end tuners feel like high-end tuners. You'll get that fine, smooth tuning adjustability back. Now, if you've got sealed bearing tuners, there's nothing you can do. Once they get dirty or start to wear out, they just need to be replaced, which is why in my best budget upgrades video, I recommended upgrading those with Wilkinson style open gear tuners, which are a clone of the Hipshot ultralight tuners. And again, just a little spritz of some kind of silicone dry lubricant. Okay, this is RV specific for window tracks, but it works wonderfully. You just want something that reduces friction and won't attract dirt and debris. Okay, it's very important. Some people like to use white lithium grease on this, but then it ends up attracting more dirt and grime down the road, and then you have to do the whole process again. But if you clean it and then you lubricate it with something like this that will not only lubricate it, but also protect it from getting dirty, then you won't have to do this near as often. And man, this cheap little tuner already feels so much better. All right, before I tell you my last best DIY upgrade, we've got some business to take care of. We have a Patreon contest winner to announce. This is not a giveaway or a raffle or gambling or anything. This is a contest for which you actually have to do an action in order to qualify to win. You have to be a Patreon supporter of $5 or more, and you had to find and comment on my post on Patreon that you wanted to win this kit. And so, of the people that commented, I have assigned them all a number, and we are going to spin to see who wins. All right, number 16. Let's see who that is. That is, no way. That is David Cap. All right, David Cap, connect with me via Patreon only, please, to give me your shipping address. That way I can ship this to you. Don't try to connect with me anywhere outside of Patreon so that you can avoid scammers. Sadly, one of my viewers did end up losing some money to a scammer this week, and it just absolutely breaks my heart. So just a reminder, if anyone ever replies to one of your comments saying that you won something, they are a spam account. Don't talk to anyone else. Don't Venmo, Zelle, don't Telegram, don't WhatsApp anyone pretending to be me. And the last upgrade that you can make for your cheap, budget-friendly base is a good quality setup job. Now, I'm not gonna walk you through all the steps of a setup right now. I have a video dedicated to it. But just like people don't put enough weight on the strings that people put on their instrument, people certainly don't put enough weight on a good quality setup for their instrument. And it seriously will make the biggest improvement in your tone and playability, far and above any other upgrade that we've done to this instrument in this video. So I highly recommend that you watch that video next if you don't already know how to set up your bass like a pro. It doesn't require any special tools. It only requires an hour of your time, and the payoff is just incredible. Now, obviously, I did a lot more to this bass than just the DIY upgrades I showed you in this video. I upgraded a few products as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you a before and after sound demo anyway, because what I want you guys to pay attention to is not necessarily just the difference in tone from the new pickups and the new wiring, but I also want you to watch my hands and see how much better this plays. I mean, it plays effortlessly now as opposed to before. And I also want you guys to be listening for that sustain. Okay, that was a buzzword that I was throwing out in the last couple of videos that I wasn't honestly entirely sure made a huge difference, but when I went back and listened to the sound demos that I recorded, it actually made quite a bit more difference than I thought. So watch the sound demo and let me know down in the comments if you can see and hear a difference in the playability and sustain. Like I mentioned earlier in the videos, I didn't give you every step of doing quality fretwork and a quality setup job. So definitely make sure you're checking out those videos if you haven't already, because those things make the biggest difference in the playability and sustain of your instrument. So check those out. I'm Dan, this is Guns and Guitars, and I'll see you in those videos.